All right, welcome back to another edition of the Franklin Community High School Career Exploration Project. With us today, we have Angel Tarvin, and she is a school psychologist at Northwood Elementary and St. Rose, both here in Franklin. So, Angel, first of all, thank you for joining me.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right. So I guess first of all, just kind of describe your role as a school psychologist, what you do, kind of what that's about, and how you got there. Any different roles that you may have had that led to this.
Okay. Well, first of all, my role as a school psychologist could be different from state to state. It can even be different from school district to school district. So it's one of those roles that can do a lot of things, but sometimes is narrowed down depending on where you're at. So I would say primarily in Franklin, my role is to evaluate children for special education services, kids who are struggling with school who might have a disability. So my role is to evaluate, determine if a child has a disability and if they might have one, if they need what's called an IEP, which is an individualized educational plan, which is tailored to all student needs. So that's the primary role. Those are all deadline based, so those have to be done first. But my other role is to monitor students and their progress, particularly at elementary level. I monitor student progress in reading and math in those areas too, to determine when interventions might be needed, if those interventions are working or not working, and at what point we need to move to a full evaluation. So I also monitor that. I also help with behavioral plans for students who struggle with behavior, and work with teachers in different capacities, mainly in those areas. I work with kids who struggle at school.
All right. So I'm sure that's kind of you're going in all different directions at all times with that. You've got kids who are there for you to help, and then you're trying to figure out if there's other kids that are added on to be tested to get in there and get your help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know much about school psychology. So as an undergrad student, I was a psychology major, and I knew I wanted to do something in psychology, but I had no idea what. The field is pretty broad. So I went to Franklin College, and there they have internships in January, which I think is a huge reason how
Great term.
Winter term. So I did my one internship at South, I think it was called South Keystone Middle at the time. They've switched their names to Southport Middle now, but I worked with the guidance counselor because I thought maybe that's what I wanted to do. One day the school psychologist was there and he said, "Hey, you want to come watch what I do?" And so I did, and I helped to give an assessment, and from that point on, that's what I decided I was going to go get my degree in and start there. So the next internship, and I will say this for all students, internships are equally helpful in letting you know what to do and what you don't want to do. So my second internship told me what I didn't want to do. And so I worked with a social worker at a mental health clinic, and we had to go into the homes, and the goal was to try to keep families together by educating parents and supporting them. Was not my cup of tea. So not that I don't want to support families, but the role was just not what I wanted to do. And so that solidified my decision to do school psychology.
So you always kind of knew you wanted to do something in psychology. Was that kind of what led you to this? Is that just the interest in personality and how people behave and things like that?
Yes. I don't remember why I decided psychology, but I came in with that major. That's what I came in for, and that's what I finished with. So something in me knew that that's what I wanted, but I honestly don't remember why I decided that in high school. But
hey, sometimes we're just drawn to things like based off our personalities, and that's kind of the way that we're drawn to it. So.
Yeah.
So as far as the job goes, obviously it's something you're very passionate about. You love a great deal. What are some pros? Like, what are some of the things you like the most, and what are some cons? Some things that you're like, yeah, I could do without this in this job.
The pros are I like figuring out what's going on with kids, to me, it's like being a detective. And I guess part of me always wanted to be a forensic psychologist. So I kind of wanted to do that too. So just a little detective work, like trying to figure out what causes the issue and taking all the factors in and putting those together. It's one of my favorite parts of the job. So like when I work with kids and I give them I love when I have a theory or a hypothesis and the child comes in and I'm like, oh, I was right. Like I figure it out. It's really not that fun when you're not right or you can't figure it out. But it is rewarding to be able to say, this is the cause, and to give parents a reason for why maybe their child has struggled.
Right.
Also to give that to teachers. I love being involved before children are identified with special education. I love the intervention piece of it. I think a lot of kids have been misidentified with disabilities who just needed more time and a different approach to teaching for those kids. Not all kids learn the same. And so my heart is in pre-intervention and preventing the labels. That is my number one goal. Even though I have to label and I have to find disabilities, my real goal is to try to prevent that from occurring to begin with by giving kids the best options from the start. So that's probably the favorite part of the job. I like working with kids. I really like working with teachers and staff. I love doing presentations. Like probably my dream job after maybe I retire is to train, to go around and do trainings and that kind of stuff. So I love to learn new things. My sidekick is trauma-informed care. And that comes from our personal life. We've adopted a boy from Haiti who now is our son. And so we've watched that firsthand in our homes. And so that is a big passion of mine, is to talk about trauma-informed care.
Yeah. So what about cons? You can't skip out that easily.
Yeah. On the cons, you said?
Yeah.
Too much paperwork and the caseload's too high. The paperwork I will spend, and this, I don't want to scare people away, but so for every child I assess, I have to write a report on what I found. And to be honest, those reports take me 6 to 8 hours per student. So I work part-time. So if you can think about that, one whole day could be dedicated to writing a report on a student. And that's not counting all the times I get interrupted and all the meetings that I have to go to. So that is the biggest downfall. I don't particularly, it's funny, I don't mind writing just to like journal, but I do not love to write. And so that I'm fine with, I feel like I'm good at it, but it's just not one of those things. I would rather be spending my time with people or poring over data. I love data. I'm a statistics person, so I love that part of the job. So I don't like trying to formulate all of my thoughts into a concise report that parents can understand, but that if they take it to a doctor, the doctor doesn't think I'm dumb because I wrote it, simpler for everybody to understand. So it's a balance, but that's what I don't like.
I respect that. So in this role that you've got, it seems like you've got kind of an analytical mind and kind of empathetic personality. So what other, characteristics would a person who'd be successful in this role have? And what would maybe be just a person who's not as successful in this role or who may struggle?
I think you have to be organized, well organized. You have to know how to do time management. This job, if I can squeeze 55 things in an hour, then I'm doing good. Like it's that constant. You have to be able to plan ahead. Like, for example, every kid I have has a deadline that the State Department gives, and I can't miss it or I risk losing funding. So, and every deadline has a 5-day ahead deadline and then a 10-day deadline. Like everything has date and time. So if you are not organized, I'm a really organized person. And to be honest, this year has been so difficult. I can't, and what's made it even harder is I can't keep it together. So you have to be organized. I would say you have to be able to have good writing. You have to have good writing skills. I mean, that's the reality. You have to write a lot. Personality wise, now it's interesting because I know people with a lot of different personalities in my field. And you would think you have to be a people person, and I think you do to a point, but there's also lots of time when I'm in my office by myself or I'm having to be independent because nobody in my building does this job. So there's nobody for me to talk to in the building about my job. And so that's one thing I love about working for Earlywood for the co-op is that there is a group of psychologists and we meet once a month and we get each other. So there's that. So you have to be somebody that's okay with being, I don't want to say lonely, but just being somewhat a lone ranger in your building. But you also have to be able to interact, obviously, with all types of people, kids, teachers, parents, different personalities. So you have to be pretty flexible.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the way it is in pretty much in all education fields.
Yes.
Sure, a lot of other fields too, but yeah. How do you think someone could prepare for a role like as a school psychologist, whether it's, high school classes or anything like that? What would be your best advice for just preparing for a career in this field?
I think this is kind of a general thing because the field requires, so I have a bachelor's and then I got a master's and I have an ed specialist degree. So I had to have an ed specialist degree to be licensed in Indiana, or you have to have like a master's plus 30 some hours. Like it's quite a bit. So it's partway between a master's and a doctoral level. So I think taking college classes in high school, like getting those credits and knowing, taking rigorous classes prepares you because that's going to be the constant. I was in school for 7 years. So after high school, so you have to develop that rigor and to be able to know that you can withstand the college, load and that kind of thing. I wouldn't think you have to take a ton, but I mean, we didn't get that when I was in high school because I'm old. So we didn't have all those options, but I took classes that I knew were challenging so that I could be able to better do college classes too. I think anything working with any disability population would be amazing, like Special Olympics. I know that there is, I think you guys have a unified track and I don't know if other unified sports, but those things, kind of learning and working, talking to people. If you have friends who have learning difficulties, like asking them about their struggle. One of the things I love to do is give people examples of what it would be like if you had a specific disability and what it's like to live with that. And then, I was a psych major. I think that's important because I think the statistical part of psychology as well as the mental health. And I will tell you, my job is turning more into that mental health piece, which some states, it's always been that way. Indiana's been a high testing. The way we do our funding for special education is based on identification. So because of that, that's where the emphasis gets put. But some states, that's not the case. Some states, the funding is based on intervention. So it's a different focus. So I think psychology is I took some classes at Franklin that were special ed related and education related just to have them. I didn't need them, but I wanted the information. So you could be an education major and go into school psychology. I would say most people are psych majors with some education experience. So
you probably also have to be, hopefully this doesn't offend you, but I don't think it would, kind of a psych nerd. Like you probably have to do a lot of just reading on your own of just like people's thoughts, different circumstances, different situations, maybe even some weird stuff like, here's this mass murderer. I want to read about him and what's clicking in his mind.
Well, it's funny because I read all the books about school shooters. Like it's one of my obsessions. So it is true. Like you kind of like, you're trying to get in the mind and figure it out. And I have a lovely document over here that I want to read on orthographic processing, which I'm sure everybody's very excited about, but it's very exciting.
I just got that actually, so it's good. Okay, I'm gonna get you out of here on this one.
Okay.
You obviously you have 3 kids. Is that accurate?
Yes.
So you have one who just graduated high school.
Uh-huh.
You have one
Mhm.
who is a junior,
Junior.
correct?
Mhm.
And then you
Yeah.
have it's
A sixth grader.
okay,
Yeah.
sixth grader. So you have 3 kids. So you're kind of familiar with the high school and everything like that, and obviously you went to high school
Uh-huh.
5 or 6 years ago. So
Yeah. Yeah.
what's some general advice you have for high school students?
Mm. Oh man.
Or just something like you wish someone would have told you, or you wish, something maybe your daughter told you, said, oh, I wish I knew that in high school, or anything like
Yeah. Um, I would say number one, challenge yourself for where you're at. And that's different for everybody. Try to do one thing that challenges you in high school, makes you move outside of your comfort zone. Um, I would say stay active. I think it's important not to just do academics. I think you want to be active in something. And I would say serve. I think service is one of the things that does change and gives you a broader outlook. So, you leave high school, and I hate that they make you go, oh, I'm going to be whatever. Like when my daughter was looking for colleges, and I kept telling her, don't worry about a major. Like, it's not a big deal. Well, come to find out, it was a big deal. Unfortunately, the major that she picked, it was a big deal. But to be honest, I don't think you really know when you come out of high school
that.
what you want your life to look like. And so don't feel pressured to know I'm going to do this major and I'm going to be in this job, and it's okay to change. It's okay to pick a major and change it first semester, second semester. But by serving and being out in the community, you're exposed to people and positions and places that you didn't even know existed. I didn't even know a school psychologist was a thing. I'd never heard of it. I would have said to you there wasn't one in our school. Well, that's a lie. I have people say this to me all the time. Well, we don't have one of those. Yeah, you do. You just never met them because they're in their room writing reports. That's why. No, but like people don't know, and you just until you get out there. So get on serve in your community somewhere, or serve at school, or get to know teachers. Ask them how they started out. Maybe they didn't always want to teach. Maybe they started out somewhere else. But I think it's one of the greatest gifts we have is the people around us. Getting to know them and learning about them to kind of look into our future and figure it out, because it's not you're 18, and I hate to tell you, but your brain's not fully developed till after 25. So any decisions you make still may not be fully fully ready for you until you get older. So just to get experience and look out. I did not work much as a high school student. My girls both do work, and I encouraged that because I wish I would have done more. I was like in my books all the time, but I wanted them to be more well-rounded. So I would say just get out, whether it's working or community service or such. So
yeah, fantastic. And that that does help you kind of see, like you said, what you want to do, what you don't want to do. So
yeah.
Angel, thank you so much for joining me here this morning. Once again, Angel Tarvin, school psychologist at Northwood and at St. Rose here in Franklin.